Imagine this. You're alone, flying an obsolete warplane over India, when 64 enemy aircraft appear, heading straight for your base. What do? This is the unbelievable true story of 2nd Lieutenant Philip Adair. It was December 13th, 1943. 9:27 a.m., Adair, 23 years old, was on patrol in his P-4ON Warhawk, nicknamed Lulu Bell, over Assam. Suddenly, 64 Japanese aircraft materialized through the morning haze. Their target was clear and catastrophic. Denjin Airfield, his home base, packed with critical C-47 transport planes, a field hospital, and vital fuel supplies. Adair was the only pilot airborne. The odds were 64-1. For weeks, similar raids had decimated Allied airfields, destroying dozens of aircraft and killing hundreds. Denjin housed 14 C-47 transports loaded for the crucial hump airlift to China, a hospital treating 63 wounded soldiers, and 11 days of fuel. If these bombers reached it unopposed, Allied operations would be crippled for weeks. The nearest friendly fighters were 38 minutes away. Adair had a choice. He could run, radio for help, and shadow the enemy. But by the time help arrived, the bombs would already be falling. Or he could attack alone, against impossible odds, and try to disrupt their bombing run. He pushed the throttle forward. His P-40, though rugged, was armed with just 650 caliber machine guns, holding enough ammo for about 12 seconds of sustained fire. He climbed, positioning himself 4,000 feet above the enemy formation, coming at them from the south with the sun behind him. Surprise was his only advantage. Japanese pilots expected fighters to meet them near the target, not 20 miles out. He ignored the 40 Oscar fighters swarming around the 24 Sally bombers. His plan was simple and desperate. Hit the lead bombers first. Break their formation. Make them scatter. Force them to abort. He rolled inverted, pulled the nose down, and dove, building speed to 360 miles per hour. The bomber crews still hadn't seen him. At 800 yards, he opened fire. Tracers arced. Rounds hammered the lead Sally bomber's left wing. Metal sparked, fabric tore, and the port engine erupted in a fiery orange blaze. Black smoke poured out. The formation instantly broke. Bombers scattered left and right, their tight V dissolving into chaos. Adair pulled up hard. 7 Gs crushed him into his seat. He rolled right, just as 40 Oscar fighters, fast and incredibly maneuverable, dove on him. The P-40 was faster in a straight line but couldn't outturn an Oscar. Standard tactics were to hit and run, never turn. But Adair couldn't run. He had to keep them scattered, keep them nervous, even if it meant fighting 40 Oscars alone. He dodged, weaved, fired short bursts, but no hits. His ammunition counter dropped. Behind the fighter screen, the Sally bombers were trying to reform into their deadly Vs. He had perhaps 90 seconds before they reached their release point. Adair shoved the throttle to the stop and dove toward the bombers again, 8 Oscars following him. He accelerated to 405 miles per hour, opened the gap, and lined up on the right-hand Sally formation. He fired. Tracers converged on the lead bomber's right engine. It exploded in a fireball, rolling right, streaming fire and debris. Another bomber broke away to avoid collision. Adair kicked rudder, skidded left, and fired at another Sally. His rounds punched through its thin fuselage. The obsolete Ki-21 bomber had no armor, no self-sealing fuel tanks, but it could still drop 2,250 pounds of bombs. Now 12 Oscars were closing. Adair's fuel gauge showed 162 gallons. His ammo counter read 650 rounds. The bombers were 19 miles from Denjin, 4 minutes from drop range. Then, his engine started overheating. The Allison V1710 was a liquid-cooled engine, designed for 20 minutes of combat power. Adair had been running at full throttle for 11 minutes. His coolant temperature gauge climbed past normal. At 250 degrees, the engine would fail. He was at 230 and rising. He had three choices: reduce power and abandon the attack, return to base, or keep fighting and risk engine failure over hostile territory. He kept the throttle forward. Two Oscars came at him head-on. Their 7.7mm tracers walked toward his nose. He fired back, his heavier .50 caliber rounds hitting the left Oscar's engine cowling. It shuddered, broke left, trailing white coolant vapor. Adair rolled right and dove. His coolant temperature hit 240 degrees. The Sally bombers were 15 miles out, two formations of six reforming into bombing Vs. He went for the lead formation again, diving past six intercepting Oscars at 390 miles per hour. At bomber altitude, he leveled out and opened fire on the lead Sally. His first burst hit the right wing root. The wing structure failed, the outer panel folding upward and tearing away. The Sally rolled inverted and entered a spin. The formation broke again, scattering in three directions. Their bombing accuracy was destroyed. Even if they dropped now, their bombs would be spread across miles of jungle. Adair pulled up hard. His coolant temperature gauge showed 248 degrees. The engine ran rough. He felt vibrations. Detonation was starting. 8 Oscars dove on him from above. He saw them late. Rounds punched through his right wing, tearing fabric, buckling metal. One hit his right aileron control rod. The aileron response went mushy. Another burst sparked off his engine cowling, penetrating the coolant reservoir. Green coolant sprayed across his windscreen. The engine temperature climbed past 260 degrees. Steam erupted. Oil pressure dropped. The Allison was dying. Adair chopped the throttle. Engine RPM fell. The P-40 descended. The Oscars circled, waiting. Then, his engine caught fire. Flames spread forward along the cowling. If it reached the fuel lines, the aircraft would explode in 30 seconds. Standard procedure was to bail out, but he was at 8,000 feet. Descending rapidly, 12 miles over jungle. Where Japanese patrols operated, he kept the engine running, leaning the fuel mixture to idle cutoff for 3 seconds, starving the fire. The flames decreased. He pushed the mixture forward. The engine coughed, caught, running rough, but producing power, about 60%. He was committed. Fly home on a burning, damaged engine or abandon the aircraft. The Sally bombers were 13 miles from Denton, still close enough to turn back, but their formations had disintegrated. The raid was broken. The airfield was safe. Adair turned southwest toward his base at Nguli, 43 miles away, about 15 minutes if the engine held. 6 Oscars followed him. At 7,000 feet, his engine oil pressure dropped to 0. Without oil, metal ground against metal. The propeller windmilled unevenly. Power output fell further. Airspeed dropped to 180 miles per hour. The P-40's stall speed was 120. He was losing control. The Oscars closed but didn't fire. They watched, waiting for him to crash. One pulled alongside. The Japanese pilot gestured downward. Land, surrender. Adair ignored him. At 6,000 feet, smoke, not from the engine fire, but from electrical wiring, filled his cockpit. Rounds had severed control cables and damaged the electrical system. Smoke burned his eyes and throat. He slid the canopy open. Wind blast cleared some smoke, but made breathing difficult. His airspeed fell to 160. The Oscars backed off. They believed he was dead at 4,000 feet. Adair's right aileron control cable snapped. The aileron flopped. The P-40 rolled right. the nose dropping into a dive. He hauled back on the stick with both hands. Nothing. The elevator cables were damaged. No pitch control. The jungle rushed up. 3,000, 2,500, 2,000 feet. He was going to crash then, an impossible idea. If he rolled the aircraft inverted, the damaged aileron would force the right wing up instead of down. The broken elevator, stuck in nose-down trim, would push the tail down, lifting the nose. Flying upside down would reverse the control inputs. The damage killing him right side up might save him inverted. At 1,800 feet above the jungle, Adair rolled the P-40 completely inverted. -1 G pressed him into his straps. Blood rushed to his head, vision turned red. The fuel system struggled. The Allison coughed, sputtered, nearly quit, then caught again. The nose came up. The descent slowed at 1,200 feet. The P-40 leveled out, flying upside down at 140 miles per hour. He held it for 40 seconds. Airspeed increased to 160. He was climbing slowly. But then, fuel starvation returned. The engine cut out. He rolled right side up. The damaged controls immediately pushed the nose down. He descended 300 feet, then rolled inverted again. The nose came up. He climbed 200 feet before fuel starvation forced him upright. The pattern repeated. Flip, climb. Flip, descend. Flip, climb. The 6 Oscars circling above watched this impossible display. An American P-40, burning, damaged, flying alternately inverted and upright, refusing to die. 1 Oscar dove to investigate. Adair, inverted to gain altitude, rolled upright directly at the Japanese fighter. The Oscar broke away. The American pilot was either insane or desperate. The Oscars turned east toward Burma. Adair continued his rolling climb toward Nguli. His fuel gauge showed 83 gallons. Oil pressure was 0. The engine should have seized minutes ago. It was running on momentum, friction, and sheer will. At 5,000 feet, he spotted Nguli airfield. Safety, but a new problem. His landing gear was hydraulic. The hydraulic system ran on engine power. His engine was producing minimal power. If he lowered the gear and the engine died, he'd crash short. If he belly landed, his remaining fuel might ignite. He needed the gear down before the engine quit. He pulled the gear lever. Nothing. The engine wasn't generating enough hydraulic pressure. The P-40 had a manual hand pump. 28 strokes would lower the gear. He grabbed it with his left hand, keeping his right on the stick, but he needed both hands. He released his lap belt, wrapped it around the control stick, looping it through the seat frame. The makeshift rig held the stick. He pumped hard with both hands. 15 strokes. 23. At 28, a thud. The left main gear extended and locked. The right followed. The P-40, now draggy with gear down, slowed from 160 to 135 miles per hour. The engine, at 40% power, barely maintained altitude. Nguli runway, 7 miles ahead, 3 minutes away. His vision tunneled. Carbon monoxide poisoning was affecting him. He shook his head, focusing on the runway. His engine temperature gauge, the one that still worked, showed 310 degrees. Metal was expanding. Any second, a piston would seize. 2 miles from the runway, his engine quit. The propeller windmilled to a stop. No power. The P-40 became a very poor glider. Its glide ratio was 8:1. From 2,000 feet, he should glide 3 miles. The runway was 2 miles away. Theoretically possible. But his damaged aircraft had extra drag from bullet holes. His actual glide ratio was worse, perhaps 6:1. He wasn't going to make the runway. He would crash short in the jungle. After surviving 64 enemy aircraft, Flying inverted, nursing a dying engine, he would crash 200 yards from safety. Then he remembered something from training. Something about an inverted glide. Right side up, wings generate lift. Inverted, they generate downward force. But at specific angles, this creates less drag than right side up flight. An inverted glide could extend range. No instructor expected anyone to use it. Adair had nothing to lose. He rolled inverted at 1,800 feet, 1 mile from the runway. Blood rushed to his head. His vision re-reddened. He held the inverted attitude. Airspeed steady at 125 miles per hour. Descent rate was 500 feet per minute, better than the 700 he'd experienced right side up. Tower operators watched an inverted P-40 with landing gear extended approaching. This defied all logic. On the ground, Technical Sergeant Robert Martinez watched. An inverted P-40, gear extended, smoke trailing. He thought it was a stolen Japanese plane strafing the field. Martinez ran for a .50 caliber machine gun position. At 400 feet altitude, half a mile from the runway, Adair was still inverted. His vision was fading. Carbon monoxide and negative G-forces were shutting down his brain. He had 20 seconds of consciousness. He needed to roll upright, line up and land. Too soon, he'd crash short. Too late, he'd overshoot 200 feet altitude. 300 yards from the threshold, Adair rolled right side up. The damaged aileron immediately pushed the right wing down. He countered with left stick, fighting the aircraft, forcing the wings level. The nose wanted to drop. He pulled back on the stick. The broken elevator cables gave him partial control. Just enough. The P-40 descended steeply, nose high, wings wobbling. Martinez's gun crew tracked the aircraft. Damaged, smoking. Friendly or enemy. In 3 seconds, it would cross the threshold. Martinez decided. Hold fire. Adair crossed the threshold, 90 feet, descending rapidly. Too fast, too steep. The P-40 dropped the last 90 feet in 4 seconds. The main wheels hit the concrete runway hard, a 7G impact. The gear struts compressed. The tail wheel slammed down. Metal shrieked. The right main gear collapsed. The right wing dropped, the tip digging in. The aircraft ground looped right, spinning 180 degrees, showering sparks. It skidded backward 200 feet and stopped. Smoke billowed. Fire crews raced. Adair sat motionless for 12 seconds. Then he released his straps, stood up, and climbed onto the wing. His legs buckled. Ground crew reached him. Martinez arrived with fire crews. The Allison engine was destroyed. Philip Adair had saved Dengen Airfield. All 24 Sally bombers had turned back without dropping their ordnance. The Japanese formation had scattered 15 miles short of target. 40 Oscar fighters escorted empty bombers back to Burma. 0 bombs hit Allied facilities. 0 casualties on the ground. The hump airlift continued without interruption. 3 days later, Adair was interviewed. Flight surgeons confirmed carbon monoxide levels in his blood were still elevated 72 hours later. He had been flying with severe poisoning for the final 11 minutes of the flight. That level of impairment should have rendered him unconscious. He had somehow remained functional through will alone. On January 8, 1944, Lieutenant General Joseph Stilwell presented Second Lieutenant Philip Adair with the Silver Star. Adair flew 95 more combat missions, achieving A status with 5 confirmed kills. He survived the war, retiring as a full colonel in 1971. His solution to damaged controls, flying alternately inverted and upright for 11 minutes, defied every standard flying procedure. His inverted landing approach with gear extended had never been attempted before and was never repeated. 1 pilot, 1 obsolete fighter, 64 enemy aircraft. December 13th, 1943. Philip Adair proved that impossible odds mean nothing when someone refuses to quit. If this story reminds you why we preserve history, hit that like button, subscribe for more forgotten heroes, and turn on that notification bell. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Thanks for watching.